Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're back with another edition of MITech TV, and we have a longtime friend on board, Terry Bean. If anybody is in the social media scene, they know Bean or try Bean, right?
Maybe they've even tried Bean. Who
Maybe
knows
they
at
have
this
tried
point?
Bean, but Bean is trying something new. He has a new company that I think you're the CEO of, you told me, right?
That is accurate. Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's talk about that, and then we'll also introduce my co-host Matt Roush. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, how you doing, folks? Yeah, Terry, tell us about is it's behavioral elements, right?
It is. It is. So Behavioral Elements it's an organization that's building an ecosystem to help business professionals and even in our personal lives behave intelligently, because what we've found is a lot of people aren't missing the mark in terms of human performance because of ideas or even sometimes execution. It really all boils down to their behavior. So we'll talk more about it, but it's a pretty cool mission, man. I'm excited to share how I found it in excuse me, got into it and the rest.
Now, you were saying before we got started, there's actually four behavior elements. Why don't we? Because I'm still a little confused on what exactly is going on, and I imagine the audience is too. So why don't you explain those?
At a real high level, two Harvard Business School professors who both ended up becoming the dean of the Harvard Business School set out to postulate what drives motivation. What are the primary drivers? And they came up with four very specific primary drivers. One is the drive to acquire, the second was the drive to defend, the third was the drive to bond, the fourth was the drive to learn. So what we've come across in the book, this book called Driven, they said at some point some entrepreneur and young individual is going to put together an assessment to measure these drives and figure out what they are, and not what they are, but what to call them, so we can have kind of shared language. So Jay Johnson, friend of mine, put together this assessment. This tool shows up with four the same drives. Fire is the drive to acquire. Earth is the drive to defend. Air is the drive to learn. I know I said that fourth the first time. And water is the drive to bond. So the four behavioral elements: water, air, fire, and earth.
Okay, so how does this apply to how are you going to apply this and make a business of it?
So specifically, it's training and coaching, and most importantly, it's cultural shift, because what we can do is we can come in and create shared language and shared meaning. Hey, wow, your fire is showing up a little high. We need to tone that down a little bit. Or, gosh, you know what? This culture is really rough. We need more water. Water people are truly empathetic and caring individuals,
Hmm.
so all of a sudden, the water rises, the temperature goes down a little bit, and everybody's a little cooler in the organization. Our earth friends, those are the ones that are consistent and stable and reliable and get stuff done. Your air people, high air person right here, highly creative, highly innovative, imagine possibilities and connect dots like few others can. And
Can
then
you
fire are just those dynamic leaders that sometimes can burn people out, but they're courageous and brave and go out and get shit done.
All right. Well, can you kind of give an example of how, I mean, you talked about the four elements, but how would this play out in an organization, in a business, or whatever we're looking at?
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll see leaders have either high fire or have high water, right? That drive to acquire not just money, not just fame or fortune, but status. So they're the ones that really want to climb up the corporate ladder. And sometimes they do so by any means necessary. Water people end up in leadership roles because of their ability to build and maintain relationships and genuinely care about their teams. Air people might end up in leadership roles because they're the ones that created the idea. They created the future. Earth people tend to be on the support side, doing the administrative piece, being the ones that are in the risk management world, or maybe even some contracts. Occasionally, even some IT folks end up on, or accounting finance can be very earth oriented, those detail oriented individuals that we all need to survive.
Hmm.
So what do you think makes this particular terminology, this particular analysis of workplace behavior, different from other management training tools?
So, I look at it and I've been playing around with this stuff. I'm a psych guy, right? I'm a psych major from 30 years ago. And I will tell you that psychology will tell you that your personality is basically fixed by the time you're about 6 years old. So if you were a little jerk at 6 years old, congratulations, you're a much bigger jerk now. Right? But if you were kind of cool and calm and laid back, you're probably still that same way throughout your life. The difference between personality and behavior is a choice. And once you know better, you can choose better in any given situation. The beautiful thing about behavioral elements is it shows us that we have all four of these elements inside of us. And with enough behavioral intelligence, we can begin to behave better based on what the situation calls for in the moment.
Hmm. All right. And so you're the CEO of this company. Why don't you talk a little bit about your partners?
So my partner's Jay Johnson. He and the group that he runs called Coeus Creative Group started a training and marketing firm years ago. And one day on a ride back, he and the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, were talking about behavior. And they said, boy, wouldn't it be cool if we had this assessment just like Paul Lawrence and Nitin Nohria, the authors of Driven, had talked about in their book? I think we could do that. Now, Jay is a high fire, super driven guy, and his air is super high too. So he's very creative and innovative. Mark is a marketing guy. His air is high, but his earth is balanced, and he can actually get stuff done. So they joined forces, worked together, figured out after 2 years of painstaking research how to build this methodology out. And they got it done just in time for this little thing called COVID to hit and take over the
Yeah.
entire world. And so it put a little strain on it. It was first developed as analog. About 4 years ago, they released the digital product. You can go to behavioralelements.com and take the assessment right now. It takes about 10 minutes. 40,000 plus people have already taken this globally. So companies like Nikon and Ford, NASA and other organizations have implemented part of the teachings through this into their day to day operations, not globally, but certain divisions of these organizations. Minolta is on the list. So you'd be in good company if you head over to behavioralelements.com and take that little assessment. 10 minutes of your time.
Right. Interesting. So, what's your role going to be in this going forward? Are you the sales guy? Are you? What are you going to be doing for this new company?
So my primary role is how do we take what I have termed a ginormous box of Legos, right? Jay has built all these worksheets, all these coaching programs, all these different trainings, and then said, here you go. And I'm like, dude, you're telling people here's a bunch of bricks, but you're not giving anybody the architecture to be able to see the finished product. So my job is put the system together to be able to build out and sequence how do you use this to do what and when, and then enroll the audience of coaches, trainers, leaders, psychologists, individuals that want to be able to have a shared language, a specific and proven model that can transform the companies they work with. So I'm building the ecosystem of those folks.
Interesting. Okay, that was one of my questions was how do you assess what a person is and of the four? And you just answered that. So um, the other thing I wanted to ask you is if a typical company comes to you and says, "How can you help my company?" It seems a little disjointed. Yeah, do they start off by taking the assessment, or exactly what happens?
That can happen for sure, right? It's still a consultative sale. It's trying to find out what the situation is, what's going on under the hood. But again, once they have that assessment, they can start to see, wow, this is why communicating with Sarah in HR is so different than communicating with Tom in sales, and so much easier than communicating with Peter in accounting, right? You
Well,
all of a sudden
nobody can deal with accountants, but go ahead.
nobody can deal with those
Yeah. So
accountants. Like, wait till you start talking to the PR people. Good Lord, man. So it's it's that kind of scenario, right? So what we end up teaching is not only leadership skills, but communication skills and really how to meet people where they are and actually mean it. So you learn a lot about yourself in the process. Just like if you took a disc or a Myers-Briggs or a Strength Finder, but you also learn about the people in your organization simultaneously. And what I love most about it is I don't have to remember what's a D or an I or an S or a C. I can remember water, earth, fire, and air, and I can visualize those things in the people I'm communicating with in real time so I can adjust my behavior accordingly.
okay.
All
So
right, so if people want more information on this and to talk to Terry Bean about all this, where do they go?
Well, so behavioralelements.com, and it is plural. There are four elements. So there is that behavioralelements.com. And if you want to chat, man, just send me an email, Terry at behavioralelements.com. This is, it's kind of the culmination of my life's work over the last 20 years. And it feels like everything I've been building to. I met Jay Johnson because a friend of mine said, "What are you excited about?" I said, "Oh man, I'm kind of geeked right now. I'm building an assessment to help people relate to each other better, and the outputs of the assessment are going to be water, earth, fire, and air." He said, "Well, you must know Jay Johnson." I wasn't sure if it was a question or a statement. I went to LinkedIn that night, found Jay, met him for coffee a week later, and we've been like best friends for 3 years now.
all right,
Okay.
sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Matt. Take us out.
All right. Thanks so much, Terry Bean. It's behavioral elements. Check it out. Take that 10-minute test. I'm going to later today. For right now, we'll be back in just a minute with another segment of MI Tech TV. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching MI Tech TV.